This episode is brought to you by One World Empowered. Hey there, tired mama. Do you wish you could push a reset button on your energy? Like, do you want to keep up with those Energizer bunnies that are running around you all day? I know. I feel ya. Coffee can only do so much. Well, don't you worry. I've got you covered. Now just imagine a community of mamas who know the struggle and are working together to harness and reclaim their energy. We're talking about a true community of mamas who get it. Daily practices to jumpstart your days, accountability partners, group coaching calls to ground and recenter you throughout the 28 days. Does this sound like the exact dose of medicine you need in order to feel 100% again? If so, this program is exactly what you need if you want to be more present with your kiddos, if you think a new routine will help you maximize your time and you enjoy having an accountability partner to help you with developing that new routine and those new habits, if you'd like to increase your patience and energy all while reducing your stress and anxiety, and if you think it would be amazing to have an understanding community of mamas who get it and are on the same path towards healing. Mama, today is the day you choose you and level up. Come join our 28-day energetic reset for moms by visiting www.oneworldempowered.com/workwithme and click the Learn More option next to the Energetic Reset program, or just scroll down and click the link in my show notes below. I can't wait to meet you and witness you step into your full potential. See you there, Mama. You're listening to the Empowered to Heal podcast. I'm your host, Denat T, and I'm so excited to take you on a journey through stories of everyday experts as we share the ways we've harnessed the power inside us to improve the quality of our lives and the health of our minds. We're so excited to have you here with us and hope you feel inspired and empowered to heal. Hello, you beautiful souls. I am joining you after just tucking my little one into bed for the night, and he is quite the talker at bedtime. I feel like that's when he gets all of his greatest ideas and when he starts processing his day. And so I had a lot of time to think while I was tucking him in, and I wanted to create an opportunity to share how he came earthside, I guess you could say. So I wanted to share about his birth story, and I thought what better way to do that than to invite my dear husband, Micahel, to the podcast. So, Micahel, thank you for joining us today.
Thanks for having me on. Hopefully I can provide some insight or some input that's helpful for people.
I'm excited that you're here. I feel like I talk about you a lot on the podcast and I mention you, so I'm excited to introduce you to everyone that listens and for them to hear a little bit about your amazingness. So calling my husband Michael is very weird, so I might call him nicknames throughout this. I'm the type of person, if I love you, you have like 30,000 nicknames. So if you hear weird names come out of my mouth, it's him. So I wanted to start from the beginning with you guys and share a little bit about Emery's birth story and conceiving him and what that was like when we found out that we were pregnant. So I wanted to share this because it's not like the typical story of either being surprised and really elated or trying to conceive and being excited about like the success of conceiving. Instead, there's kind of like this huge denial period that I know I for sure experienced throughout it. I don't know, Mikey, if you did.
No, yeah, absolutely.
So back in 2008, so Micahel and I have been together since 2007, and back in 2008, I was experiencing a lot of chronic pain and went to the doctor to try and see what was going on. And I was told that I likely had something called endometriosis. Many women have endometriosis. It's not extremely rare. I feel like I've met so many women in my lifetime that have shared having the symptoms of endometriosis or being diagnosed with it. And it's extremely painful. There's a lot of just constant chronic pain that comes into play when you have endometriosis. And in addition to that, there is this whole level of difficulty getting pregnant and questions on if you can get pregnant. I started kind of processing that reality back in 2008. And I believe it was like 2011. So 2008, I had multiple doctors tell me I probably had endometriosis. I went and saw a surgeon who wanted to do a exploratory surgery to find out and confirm if I have it. So endometriosis is one of those things that can only be diagnosed through surgery. I don't know if that's still true today, but that was true back then. So I went through with that. When I came out of surgery, and I think that was in 2008 or 2009, I had the surgery, they informed me that they did not see any scar tissue from endometriosis, and so they could not confirm a diagnosis. I was just like, okay, cool. That means I don't have it then. Awesome. Like, I'll go about my life. But that chronic pain continued to happen. And so I saw 2 other gynecologists to try and understand what was going on, and a gastroenterologist. Throughout that journey, my gynecologist, both of them had shared that just because the exploratory surgery did not diagnose me with endometriosis, it just meant that they didn't see any at that time, and that my lab work and my symptomology still showed that I did have endometriosis. And on top of that, I have something called a retroverted uterus. And so there was a lot of discussion of it's very unlikely that you're going to be able to conceive. And if you do conceive, it's very unlikely that you're going to have a successful pregnancy. And so I again began to process that news. And I remember having conversations with my doctors around what are my options and choices here if I want to have children, if I want them to be my own children. I remember talking to Mikey about what does that mean for us and how do you feel about that? What was going through your brain at that point when you learned all of that? What was that like for you?
I mean, I guess it was a lot of partly fear, concern for you, for your well-being. And part of it was, being adopted myself, I always thought about having a child or having, a biological connection to another human that I could see part of me in. So I think the idea of not having that, I guess, be a possibility was something that was hard to accept initially. And I think over time, just kind of, a lot of it was, convincing yourself that you're okay with that. I think that happens a lot in life. You kind of convince yourself it's okay. Not everybody needs to have that, or your parents, all the things you kind of go through is, I guess, as an adopted child, I love my parents and they're like my biological parents to me. So I didn't really feel like that was something I needed to have. It's just something in that moment that upfront was difficult to process through.
Yeah. And I remember, so growing up, I was always so excited to be pregnant one day. And I wanted to, I don't know why, but I wanted to eat a bowl of cereal or a bowl of mac and cheese on my pregnant belly and have it hold the bowl for me. I don't know why, but that was like a dream of mine since high school. And I began processing, okay, can they harvest my eggs? How long can they keep them if they harvest them? Who can carry our child? Can it still be our child, but somebody else carry our child and birth them? And we were kind of going through this whirlwind of thoughts and questions. And we didn't actually move forward with any planning around that. We just kind of said, okay, it is what it is, and began thinking about adoption. And I began looking into agencies for adopting. That went on for years. So Emery was conceived in 2015, the end of 2015. Mm-hmm. We did not get pregnant up until that point. I remember waking up one morning and I was like, why do my boobs hurt? Y'all, I have the smallest boobs in the universe, it feels like. And so them hurting was just like, this doesn't exist in my life. They hurt. I went to the bathroom and I decided, okay, I'm going to get a pregnancy test, and took a pregnancy test. And at 4 a.m. in the morning, I woke Michael up and I was like, we're pregnant. And he was like, what? And panicked. And that was this moment of, oh my gosh, what does that mean for us? Is that bad? Is that dangerous? Is that dangerous for our baby? Is that dangerous for me? And then I began to bleed. And I was like, oh, good Lord. what's going on here. And so we ended up calling our gynecologist and going in, and they did an ultrasound and another pregnancy test and confirmed I was pregnant and shared that I was like 4 weeks along. So I was super, super early in the pregnancy. Most people don't find out that early. They said that because it was 4 weeks along and where they were tracking our son to be at that point in time, our little baby, they said that he was in my fallopian tubes. I was high risk for having a tubal pregnancy, which means that he kind of stays in my fallopian tubes and begins to develop there, which can, obviously it can't produce a baby, but is also very high risk for the mother and could kill the mother and oftentimes results in surgery if that happens. And so we were kind of like, okay, we're not going to get our hopes up. We're not going to worry about it. We're just going to follow what the doctors say. And I told myself at that point in time, like, I'm not pregnant and this isn't happening yet. And what was that like for you, Mikey? What were you thinking when we were going through that?
I mean, definitely some of that. It seemed surreal. Didn't expect it. It obviously was a shock. And then as we learned more about it, I think, the fears, I start thinking about, the risk involved with, a tubal pregnancy, the risk to you, the risk to like Emery now, but the baby at that point. And I think that's something that I kind of latched onto as well throughout the pregnancy, was that fear of everything we'd gone through up to that point, all the doctors saying, the difficulty of getting pregnant, or if you do get pregnant, the likelihood of it going full term or being healthy or being safe. There was a lot of, I guess, fear for me, for you around that. I think that's something up until he was born, I continued to feel, was that fear for you to be harmed or something happened to you.
Yeah. I remember you saying that over and over again, that you were terrified for me to go into labor because you had this like fear and worry that I wasn't going to make it through like delivering our baby. And I think that probably all of the drama and the unknown leading up to the point of being pregnant and then the potential tubal pregnancy, I think really compounded that fear. So I remember then we made it past the mark. They monitored us. We had weekly ultrasounds, had pelvic ultrasounds, and once our baby moved through the fallopian tubes and attached correctly where he was supposed to, then we were safe and we were good to go. That was like this, what does that mean moment for me? Because I had told myself, no, this isn't happening, right? This isn't going to work out. And I think that's a protective mechanism so that I could like prepare myself for the worst. I just accepted that the worst had already happened. We didn't tell people we were pregnant for a while because of that. I remember telling like my supervisor at work and my HR department at work. We didn't tell our family until the end of the first trimester. I think we were at 12 or 13 weeks when we told our family. And then it was winter time. I didn't tell people at work until I was 22 weeks pregnant. I was just wearing my jacket all the time so that people didn't know. And then along came like 22 weeks and people started like looking at my belly with that look like, are you pregnant? But they couldn't ask, right? Because nobody wants to be the one to ask that question and get a no. And so I finally was like, all right, it's time to take the jacket off and just show the world I'm pregnant. And that was like this moment inside my head of, holy moly, this is real and this is happening. And I didn't want the attention and I didn't want it to be big. I didn't want people to come and touch my belly. I didn't want our baby shower. I didn't want a baby shower. And then when I was convinced to have one, I didn't want it to be like a baby shower. And it was just this, I think always this battle inside my brain of, I don't want to celebrate this too much. And looking back on it, I feel a lot of grief around not celebrating and honoring those moments because I won't have those moments again. And that's kind of been a hard pill to swallow. But I don't feel like I really celebrated and honored Emery. I remember like nesting and getting his nursery ready. We waited until super late. And finally when his nursery was ready, I feel like the pictures I have of taking pictures of what his nursery looked like were like 2 weeks before he was actually born. So that whole kind of pregnancy period was weird. And to top it all off, you guys, I am extremely terrified of needles. And I went to my gynecologist to begin planning, and she, first of all, she told us to do like a what was that blood test we did? We did like a blood test to discover any potential birth defects due to Michael being adopted. And what was that called?
I don't recall what the test was called, but yeah, it was to compare, my genes to your genes, see if there's any overlap that would cause him to be at a higher risk for different, genetic defects or birth defects, whatever it might be.
And during that process, they used the blood samples to discover if he was going to be a little boy or a little girl. And so we found out really early that he was a little boy, and that was its whole process too. I was convinced he was going to be a girl until we got into the doctor's office. We were sitting there waiting for the doctor to come in. I remember looking at you, Michael, and I was like, "It's a boy." And she came in and she told us it was a boy, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, it's a boy." I was terrified to have a boy. Now I wouldn't trade it for the world. It's the best thing ever. You begin planning for your birth, and you create what's called a birth plan with your gynecologist. And she was talking to me about what to expect, and I did not like anything she had to say. I'm very passive and quiet with people. But I told her I'm afraid of needles. I don't want to get an IV. I don't want to get poked. I want to have natural labor and delivery if possible. And she said, we can do it without any medications, but you have to get an IV. And I said, I don't want to get an IV. So she looked at me and she said, I'm sorry, sweetie. I'm not going to be able to be your gynecologist then. And she gave me a business card of a midwives group to call. And I was in that moment, my heart sank. I was like, did my gynecologist just quit on me? It was this crap moment. But it was the best decision ever. We called the midwives group, and I feel like that was a really good match for us. And throughout that journey and going to prenatal yoga, we learned about doulas, and we signed up for hypnobirthing classes, which hypnobirthing classes kind of sounds weird, but it's all about controlling your mind and your thoughts and training your thoughts in your body before delivery. And it's really, in my mind, it's so powerful. And that was kind of my start of exploring alternative healing. So I have always believed in yoga and loved and enjoyed practicing more stretching, slower, easygoing yoga. I always knew that I didn't like modern medicine. I don't like taking medications. I don't like pokes. And so we discovered this thing called hypnobirthing, and I loved it. It was this really powerful reframing of everything. Our first class, they went in and they taught us new language. So contractions are called surges. They renamed everything so that it wouldn't have a negative connotation attached to it, like you would experience watching a TV show around what birth looks like and screaming while someone's giving birth and cursing everybody out. And then we watched a lot of videos on peaceful birthing and the breast crawl and being able to have quiet, calm, almost pleasant births, and as much as you can. I know that sounds silly for people who have given birth or people who know about giving birth, but we practice these mantras. I would listen to this rainbow relaxation every night before bed and fall asleep listening to rainbow relaxation. I would drive to work listening to these mantras and drive home from work listening to the mantras. It was all about getting your brain ready and knowing okay, this is what is going to happen. And my two favorite mantras that I still know today is my baby and my body will work in perfect harmony. My body is my baby is the perfect size for my body. And it's reframing and helping you understand and relax through that. That along with prenatal yoga and teaching you to smile through your surges and teaching you to, if y'all are 8 months pregnant trying to do a squat and holding your squat for 60 seconds. They teach you smile throughout that, and you could do anything for 60 seconds. You can do anything for 60 seconds. And so it was like training your brain to go through hard stuff and get through it and reframe your thought process about it and expose you to understanding how your mind can control how your body feels and how your body performs. That was so profound for me. And Micahel is like, if anybody on here has ever met Micahel, y'all know that I'm super hippie-esque and he's like, not. What was that like for you going through that?
Yeah, I mean, not hippie-esque is a great way to describe my outlook on a lot of things. I think I just look for, a very fact-driven person, which doesn't mean that there's no science behind something. If there's not, I can't see the facts, but that's just my mind. Sorry. I remember when we first got into hypnobirthing, we went to a Babies R Us. That was like the intro, and they showed a video of people having these really peaceful births, and also that sounded great to me. But obviously being the husband in the situation, you don't have a lot of, I guess, context to stuff that you're not feeling the changes in your body, right? You're seeing them, you're trying to be there for your wife or significant other, and there's only so much you can feel, as the kind of the second party to the situation. And it sounded great to me. I know it's something that Dina was very passionate about, something that she really wanted to go down. So, as much as, my non-hippie side was like, I don't know, this seems a little suspect. It seemed like to her, she was really interested in it. And obviously they showed the video helping people. And, I started kind of researching it on my own. I could see there was people saying it helped them. So I figured, why not give it a shot? And I have to tell you, even through probably most of the classes we went to, I was still probably a little skeptical just because, I'm very much not an in my head person in the sense that I know meditation is good for you, and I still think it's hard for me to do because I'm too, in my head. I can't turn off that part of my brain sometimes. And in this situation, a lot of it was that kind of understanding and listening to your body and all those things I think that I struggle with. I think made it a little different for me. But there's other couples in the class. I could see other, husbands probably were similar places that I was. And I feel like as we went through it with each one, you can see kind of like the evolution of, at least for me, for Dina, seeing her go from the beginning of it to as we got towards the end, her mentality on the process of birth, you can see she was a little bit more at peace with it than when we started. So at the very least, I felt happy for that portion. And I was still out, for me, it was still out for debate on what it was going to be like when it happened. But I was excited for her. I was hoping, that it was something that was going to make it so she didn't have to get the pokes, because I know how much she does not like those.
What was it like for you in classes when we were the lights would be turned off? We would be listening to a meditative recording, and there's all these super pregnant women laying on the floor, practicing breathing and meditating with their men, their partners holding them in some sort of position or guiding them through that. What was that like for you?
That was also different for me, right? I think on my own, when I'm told hey, close your eyes, meditate, think of something, I can be very obstinate in those moments, right? I feel like, I'm losing control of whatever I think I'm losing control of myself, or, it doesn't make sense. But in that moment was similar stuff where I felt like I had to focus on my role there was to be supportive, not to interject.
You were such a trooper. So these classes were in a hospital. And we would go pulling 5 pillows out of the car, traipsing our way into this hospital, up the stairs, into this classroom. Sometimes I felt like you were there for the treats, because there was always something to snack on or drink. And I felt okay, if we didn't have those treats, I'd have to give more buy-in from you. But we'd have those treats and the class would start, and we're pretty introverted as a couple. And we don't really socialize with the other couples there. A lot of the other couples had kids before, or were trying for a long time, or had fertility assistance for getting pregnant. And we were just showing up for our first kid, super quiet. And it was beautiful. It was we could be quiet. We could be ourselves. We had moments where it was studying and you're learning the material, to going back and laying in the back of the class on the floor, trying different positions, teaching your significant other different places to push on your body to relieve pain. And overall, like maintaining this ability to co-regulate together, which I know I've talked with you guys about in the past, but co-regulating is so absolutely foundationally important, and just being there together through those moments. And anywho, fast forward, we did all of the hypnobirthing classes. It ended before we were delivering our son. And I'm going to fast forward to the moment where I began labor. And so we were having like just a weekend. And I remember leaving work on Friday. I walked past one of the leaders at work in the hallway, and they're like, "Whoa, are you okay?" And I was like, "I'm good." Like, "When are you due?" And I said, "August 2nd, I've got time. And plus, I'm not going to deliver this baby I'm planning like 12 days after the due date." And people were like, "Why?" And for me, I was like, the longer he can cook, the stronger, the healthier, the smarter he's going to be. And I was determined like 12 days after his due date. And he's like, "Okay." And he was a dad. I was like waddling around. Like Emery had dropped. I had so much pelvic pain and literally just like waddling around the office. I was at I never left work on time. It was always finishing up doing things. And I remember someone came up and they're like, "I'm not going to leave work until you leave." I was like, "Why? I'm fine." And they're like, "Because you can't be the last person in the building and go into labor." I was like, "Okay, I'll leave. Let's go." Went home, and the next day we went to, what was it called? A little restaurant we tried for the first time.
I think it was called Crackers.
Crackers? I don't think it was
Biscuits.
Biscuits.
I don't know. Some kind of carb.
We went and had lunch. I went pee like 7 times, it felt like, during that short lunch hour. And they gave you a cookie, a chocolate chip cookie that you could leave with for free, which, I mean, I'm a cookie lover. So that was like, we've never been back to that place.
No.
We've only been there once. I need to go back for the cookie. But then we went to a grocery store, and I was like already having contractions at this restaurant, like going to the bathroom, in a lot of pain, needing to stand up. And then we went to the grocery store, and I was like, "We're good. Let's just go grocery shopping." And I walked in, and I walked to the chocolate aisle because I'm a chocoholic and I need chocolate in my life. And I was looking at all the different chocolate bars, and I was in so much pain. I could not walk anymore. And so you went and you got the rest of the groceries, and I hung out next to the chocolate.
Yeah.
And this lady comes up to me, and she's like, "Are you okay?" And I'm like, "Yeah, just checking out the chocolate." And she actually told me which chocolate to buy, which was very nice of her. And then we came home, and I told you, like, I think I'm in labor. I was like, "I think I'm in labor. Like, holy moly, this is happening." And they teach you to track your contractions. And so we had this app, pulled out this app, started timing the contractions. And I was like, "Whew, I'm in labor." And what was that like for you?
I was like, nope. In my head, I was like, I convinced myself it was false labor, because I was reading all stuff about, up until that point, people have false labor all the time, and it feels really similar to labor. It can be even similar experience for them. So I was in denial, I guess you could say. Like, nope, it's not. There's no way it's going to happen now. We're supposed to have it in August. You said 12 days after the due date, so this is too early, kind of thing.
And this was July 30th, mind you. And I tracked my contractions, and you guys, the hypnobirthing classes are pure gold. If you are pregnant, planning to be pregnant anytime soon, check out hypnobirthing. It's magic, just pure, beautiful wisdom and magic. I was in full-blown contractions on my hands and knees because I was laboring in my back. Which, a shout out to Angie Crook. She had talked to me a few weeks prior about giving birth to her daughter and that she had to labor on her hands and knees because she had so much back pain. Shout out to you, Angie, because that was in my head and it was the biggest relief ever. I stayed on my hands and knees for hours. So long. And I know, Michael, you went to bed. I remember the doula telling us, like, sleep when you can. If you're in labor and it's not too bad yet, try to sleep. And I was downstairs on my hands and knees laboring, and at one point the contractions or surges got got a little less. And so I made my way upstairs and fell asleep for a couple hours before they woke me back up. And I labored throughout that until about 10 a.m. I was finally like, we need to call the doula. And I remember you were like, it's not happening. You are not in labor. It's like, it's happening. I'm in labor. Like, we need to call the doula. And so we called her. Her name's Darcy, and she's absolutely a miracle worker. She came over like an hour later. She was just pure genius. She was able to tell, based on the pain I was having, how I was laboring and what needed to be done. And she realized that Emery was in the wrong position. That's why I was laboring in my back. And she was just this godsend. I'd be on my hands and knees, and our house was silent. Like, you could probably hear a pin drop. It was so stinking quiet. And I think that was like the meditative state and the needing for peace and like calmness. And I had planned out like essential oils, diffuser, music playlist, all of the stuff that I wanted. And when it came time, it was no, I wanted pure silence. And I labored in pure silence. And I labored through my surges silently. It was just breathing the entire time. And so it wasn't like what you see in movies where there's like screaming and pulling people's hair out and cursing at people. It was very like creating a peaceful environment, focusing and being in my head and focusing on my mantras. She would come up and she'd push on the spot on my lower back where, so my sciatic nerves, like that was, I was in so much pain. It just was like on fire. And she'd push on this point in my back without me saying anything or asking for help. She just knew where to push and what to do. And it was magic. It would like melt the pain away. Oh my God. Absolutely beautiful. And then she got this thing that I don't remember. It was like started with an R, but it was a cloth where she stood over me when I was on my hands and knees, and she lifted up my belly and she shook my belly to move my baby into a different position. And she had me go down our stairs. We live in a 2-story house. She had me go down our stairs head first on my hands and knees to try and flip our baby. I mean, it was crazy. And finally, we came to a point where she's like, it's time to go to the hospital. And I had lost my mucus plug. And she told you, Michael, she's like, do you have a car seat in the car? We said, no, like this isn't happening yet. And you went, she's like, put the car seat in the car, put a garbage bag and a towel on the passenger seat. For me, because my water hadn't broken yet, I remember standing at the base of our stairs, staring at the door to the garage, and just like tears streaming down my face. And it wasn't out of pain. It was out of complete fear. Like I was struck with the reality of we're going to the hospital. This is happening now and I have no control over it. And it was like this like punch to my heart of like, holy crap, and just tears. And she came over and she said, it's okay. It's going to be okay. And I was like, pull up your bootstraps, Tina, get in the car. What was that? Tell me, Michael, what was that like for you?
Yeah, I guess it was surreal. I mean, I think I was obviously in denial that it was time for him to, I guess, come into the world. There was a good chunk of it was me. Like, if it wasn't happening, then I didn't have to come to terms with the fact that I was afraid of things going wrong during the birth, right? If it wasn't happening, it was happening later, then I didn't have to think about it. So I kept trying to put that in my mind. But once it was like, put the car seat in the car, put a trash bag on the seat, and I was like, oh, okay, I guess I got to do that. So I feel like at that point, it was real. It was real to me. I mean, obviously it was real, but up to that point, I felt like I was still kind of hoping, like, oh, maybe in some weird world, it's not really the time. You know, it's got to be at least in August, but not July kind of deal. And you know, once, like I said, once she kind of said, Michael, here's your task. I said, okay, I'll go do them. Get in the car. Then it was obviously, I was like, I was ready to go at that point as much as I could be. You know, I still was scared. I still was afraid of, for Emery, the unknown, what would happen next. But, I think, like I said, Darcy was very, very great about being supportive of you and making sure that if I had questions, she'd answer them. If I needed to, have a little more context to what's going on, she'd provide it. And also, I think in those moments, the power of a doula is providing someone who's been through those experiences before with other people, for themselves, for other people they've been a doula for, And I think it kind of helps put you at ease knowing that someone who has experience with that process, right? I think, obviously for us, this is the first child, so you can't really, you can read all you can, you can do all you want ahead of time research. Like I like to do research, and it really doesn't help you in the moment, right? What helps you in the moment is having someone who had the confidence and the support. And I think that was help put me at ease, at least to be able to drive the car and do the things that I needed to, at least to help make it easier for you as much as I could at that point. Because obviously there's only so much you can do as the person who's just there for the ride, in the sense of like, you try to be as supportive as you can, try to meet the needs of the person who is in labor, but you really can't. It is kind of a weird place to be, I think, for, I guess, the significant other in that moment, because you can see all the different, the pain and the the physical, the emotional toll that it's taking on that person. There's only so much you can do, right? You can't feel what they're feeling, but you can see it, and you want to be able to make it easier. But I feel like one thing I do make it easier is try to make the process quicker, right? To get to the point where it needs to be, and that then it will be over for you, kind of thing. Because you can't take the pain away. And Darcy was doing a great job, and she showed me, well, here's where you press. And I guess that comes into play once we get to the hospital. I also got to press on that spot, and that was a workout. So I guess we'll get there in a little bit, but.
No, I agree with that. When I think of a plug-in for doulas, you guys, they are beautiful godsend gems, like angels on earth. I had to worry about nothing. We met with Darcy a couple times before delivery. She was the quietest, most peaceful being in the universe, and just sitting in the same room with her, I just knew, she was the person that was going to help us on that journey. She didn't have to say much. I didn't have to say much. It was like this feeling that I could experience with her. Telling her and creating our birth plans, I didn't know what was up. I was just winging it on what I wanted and trying to listen to my heart and trying to not worry about what other people tell you to do or not do. She knew the hospital we were delivering at. She did everything seamlessly. Our birth plan was already at the hospital. The doctors never asked me once if I wanted an IV or if I wanted any painkillers. There was never a question addressed to me. And then even when there was a moment, I remember you and Darcy being pulled out and talking to the nurses in the triage room. And it was like, oh crap, something's not right. And there was this pit in my stomach of great, what is it? Nobody led on to believe. Everyone came back in, smiles on, no comments to me. It was this pure respect for my decisions of where I wanted my mental space to be. And she preserved that perfectly. It was absolutely beautiful.
Yeah. I wish doulas were something that I think more people were able to have, access to, or it was something that was generally covered by insurance. Cause I think the power of, especially as a couple, having someone who's kind of like a shield manifested as a person in the hospital who allows you to focus on being there for, the person who's about to give birth to your child. It's really hard to put into words, I guess, quantify that experience, because Dina said, it is really beautiful to have someone there who's an advocate for you. And I think it's really easy to get lost in that moment because you're trying to, you don't know what's going on half the time. There's a lot of sounds, there's a lot of people, there's a lot of questions, and you're trying to figure it out. And, if I forgot something, she was there to answer. And if I'd say something and maybe hopefully it was right, she would correct if it wasn't. But it was very powerful. So
yeah, so powerful. So I remember getting in the car to head to the hospital, and the hospital is only 10 minutes from our house. And I got in the front seat and I couldn't sit down. I felt like if I sat down, I was going to sit on my kid's head. And so I was crouched up in the front seat, no seatbelt buckle or anything. As you're driving to the hospital, I remember looking out when we were at a red light, looking out the window at the car next to me, and I was like, I wonder what they think right now. I'm pretty sure my butt was in a weird position and I was this huge pregnant belly with probably a really concerned expression on my face. But we got to the hospital and then they made me sit in a wheelchair and they wouldn't let you walk to the room. And you guys, sitting was not feasible at that point in time. It was so painful. And we get into triage and I felt like that's where my mindset really started to buckle. So I had a really strong mindset and focus and zone and meditative state when we were at home. In the car, I was able to breathe through it, get to the hospital and kind of I mean, the environment changes and the hustle and bustle changes, and they put you in these triage rooms where there's people next to you in labor groaning and crying. And all of a sudden I felt like I can't be quiet anymore. And I remember being in that triage room and like the most guttural, like human, like groan, grunt, whatever sound that is came out of me. And I was like, what's happening? And when that started happening and I could hear the other people in the room and they put something on your stomach to measure your contractions and they feel like how far dilated you are, all of that messed with my mind and my focus so much to the degree that I couldn't, that time was the most painful time for me. Out of everything, that being in the triage room was the most painful. I remember they made me go put a hospital gown on and I took off my dress and I had like blood dripping down my legs. I was like, oh my gosh. Up until that point, I was able to be at peace and calm about all of it. Then I saw the blood and I heard the environment and I couldn't be. And they took forever. And they pulled you and Darcy out and I knew something wasn't right. Come to realize he was still in the wrong position to be able to give birth naturally. Then they finally, how long did it take? Like freaking forever.
It was a long time. Yeah. It was.
How long?
I don't know.
Hours? Like
At
it
least,
felt like half a day.
maybe like an hour and a half. Yeah.
Oh
but
God.
It felt longer than that because there was, like I said, there was a lot of sounds, a lot of other people. It's just a lot of hectic energy. So it was really easy to kind of get lost in that and kind of felt, almost out of body at times of just like not really knowing what's happening and at least, trying to make sure you're okay and, pushing on that spot. Cause at that point, Darcy was like also, interacting with people and answering questions and I, was trying to fulfill the relief that I could with like pushing on that spot. And that's not easy. It does a lot more, I guess, pressure than you think, to help. But yeah, that was probably the hardest part, I think, to see, like you said, for me was just, I could see that for you, it was hard, right? I could see that you had been doing such a great job going through your plan and focused and getting in that moment. There's just so many, like I said, sounds and sights and people and questions and just when you're in a hospital, it feels like a hospital. And then in that moment, it felt even more so. It wasn't like the rooms we looked at ahead of time. It wasn't the birthing room. It was just a triage area where you have curtains and stuff like that. So it feels very, very clinical. And I think going from as peaceful as it could be for you to that, and I think
it's crazy.
Yeah,
it was crazy. And finally, so part of our birthing plan was I wanted to labor in the tub. So up until that point, I would come home from work and I would strip naked and I would like fall into the pool. It was summertime, so the pool was like bath water in Arizona in the summer. And I would just like have such immense relief from the pressure of my huge pregnant belly. My skin, I guess, is not made to stretch, but I got the worst stretch marks that would crack and bleed. And just being able to go in the saltwater pool and have that pressure lifted off, have like that terrible groin pain and the sciatic nerve, all of that lifted off. I knew I wanted that to be a part of my birth plan. And so they kept telling us in the triage room, we're just filling up the tub. We're just filling up the tub. And I'm like, damn it. Like, I know how long it takes to fill up a tub. What are you not telling me? It was rough. And so we finally got to go into the room and I saw the tub and you guys, I just stripped naked in front of everybody that was there. It was like, I don't care who can see me and my big pregnant belly naked. I am going straight for that tub. And I stripped naked. I got in the tub. It was like sweet relief, like absolute, utter sweet relief. And then I was like, I have to poop. And you guys, this is just, I'm going to be so straight up on here because I think everybody needs to know what the reality is when you're giving birth. They say like when you're birthing your baby, you might poop. And nobody's going to tell you if you do or don't. But I was in that tub and I felt like I was going to poop. The nurses were like, it's okay, honey. You can poop in the tub. We'll get it out. And I was like, I'm not pooping in the tub. And Darcy's like, when you climb out, I want you to climb on your hands and knees with your butt in the air. And I was like, okay, he's still in the wrong position. And so I did that. I climbed on my hands and knees, fully butt naked, drenched in water, completely pregnant, in between surges and contractions, down the 3 steps that pry you out of the bathtub. And that was like an Olympic sport, trying to do that naked. And y'all, let me just clarify for you, you don't give a crap who sees you naked in any compromising position when you're in labor. And I giggle about that because people who tell me they want kids question, like, do I want my spouse to be there? Do I want them to see like that end of my body when I'm giving birth? Will it scar them? Y'all will not care what is going on and who sees what at that point in time. I literally crawled bum in the sky, butt naked, out of that tub and went and sat my butt on that toilet because I was like, I am going to poop. And the nurse comes, as soon as I sit my butt on that toilet, the nurse comes and she spreads open my legs and looks, and she's like, nope, that's a head. Get on the bed. And I was like, wait, what? No, like, I gotta poo, lady. She's like, no, like, that sensation is your baby coming. Like, oh, okay. So I got on the bed, which also I don't recommend. If you have the choice, be in whatever position your body tells you to be in. I would have stayed on the toilet, for crying out loud, or in that crouched position, because that was the most natural state for my body, and it was already like gravity was helping do its thing. When they put me on the bed and I had to lay on my back, it hurt so bad. I couldn't because of that pressure on my back. And so I leaned my arms over the back of the gurney bed thingy with like on my belly so that I could like hang a little bit. And then I was like, I peed. Guys, I think I peed. And my water hadn't broken at that point. And they're like, well, we're just going to test it and see if it's amniotic fluid because it might just be your water breaking. So they test it and they say, no, you peed. I was like, okay. And then I labored for a few more minutes and I was like, I peed again. I'm sorry. And they tested it and they're like, nope, that's your water. Your water broke. And then within the minute of my water breaking, Emery was there. It was like water broke, back on my back, push. I remember the midwife coming in and his head was like trying to come out, but couldn't. And so she did this, what's that called?
Perineum massage.
Oh my God. She did this, like, they tell you the burning ring of fire, you guys. It's literally a burning ring of fire. She goes in and, like, stretches me, like, pulls and stretches me to try and get my kid's head to come through. I tore so bad. It was so bad. And I birthed him. Emery came out and Michael actually received him. So the doctor, the doula, the midwife, nobody touched Emery. Michael received him. What was that like, honey?
Man, yeah, that was pretty special. It was also a little scary because, you know, I guess in the movies they show you get a baby in your hands, it comes out, and they have a pretty long umbilical cord because they pick him up, they hold him, they put him on the mom. He came out, and I was gonna pull him out, and he stopped. I almost dropped him. Like that was terrifying, but it was a very short umbilical cord. So, but yeah, it was very. I mean, you know, the honest answer is, I guess, you know, as a husband, as a partner, you know, your wife's giving birth. You know, some people, she mentioned earlier that some people are afraid of having their husbands there. What are they going to think? They don't want them to see that. But for me, at least as a husband, you're not focused on anything but your wife and how they're feeling and the child. So you don't really think, I feel like in a way you're kind of like blind to everything in a sense. Like you're not really focused on anything other than like the end goal is both people being healthy, the child and the mom. So that's really all I was thinking about. And then when I had to receive him, I was thinking about making sure I don't drop him. And then almost became reality that I dropped him because I pulled him out and he didn't come out all the way. And I kind of tried to move him up to you, and then also almost dropped him again, moving up for you to hold him because it didn't go that far. So yeah, it was very special. It was something at one point I didn't think I'd be able to experience. So, you know, having that be the first person that he comes in contact with outside of you was very special.
Yeah, I feel like that was such a big moment that you were anticipating and anxious for. Did you cut the umbilical cord too?
Yeah. That's also much more difficult than it seems. I mean, I guess I don't know what that means if I saw that happen before, but it seems like it should be simple. But reality, it was a little more difficult than I thought it would be. A little gummy? Like. Yeah, it wasn't as easy to cut, and I was a little nervous. Like I thought I'm hurting something. It just, it feels weird to cut something that's connected to two people that you love and care about. So I guess you don't want to do it too hard, but you have to. So that was another fun experience. But did that as well. because it wouldn't go up any further. I couldn't put him in your arms, so they like, we got to do it now, kind of thing.
I know, my umbilical cord was so short. It was like hardly enough room for him to come out of me, I feel like. It was so tiny. And then after that, I was bleeding so much and I had ripped so bad. They came in and they said, we have to sew you up. And I said, no. And they said, we're going to have to sew you up. Like, we need to give you shots to numb you. And I said, I don't want pokes. Like, no. And they said, it's either we're going to sew you up without any pokes, and that's going to hurt way worse, or we're going to poke you. And so I said, okay, fine. And they gave me the most painful shots in each of my thighs that I was still to this day hurt worse than like, I mean, it was equivalent to the burning ring of fire of when I ripped. Like, those dang shots were so painful. Then that just numbed you, but that numbed like the sharpness of the pain, but I could still feel them sewing me up. It was quite an endeavor. And I bled so much. They were talking about having to take me to the operating room. My head was spinning. They like let you have your baby for a second and then they take your baby away and they have to do all the tests on him. He never leaves the room, but there's just this like chaos moment of what is happening. And there was so much blood, like a murder scene of blood. That was scary.
Yeah. I mean, that was definitely was scary. I think that was kind of my fears realized up until the point of something happening to you and seeing it kind of unfold. I think the doctor was very calm, but it still it got progressively worse, right? I could see there was more and more blood and there was more and more concern, maybe not from the doctor specifically, but I see the other people in the room seem more concerned and, trying to convince you that, yes, you're going to need this so we can get it done kind of deal. And I think that it was definitely scary.
Yeah.
It kind of, I mean, like I said, the doctor, we'd had met with her multiple times before, so we knew her as a person. I could tell that she was very calm. She was confident. I think that helped a lot too, from my perspective, knowing the solution to the problem. It's just getting there wasn't quick.
Yeah. Well, and that's part of me being stubborn and so afraid. I just don't do pokes, you guys. I hate them so much. I've gotten so much better with it. But then I remember being sewed up and my sister, Alicia, she denies it to this day. Maybe she blocked it out of her mind, but she comes walking into that room with a Target bag in her hand. She opens the door and she says, "Hey, Peanut." She calls me Peanut. And I told her to leave. I was like, no, I don't want anybody here, just my husband and my doula. And so she left. I'm sorry for being mean to you. Maybe that's why you blocked it out, Alicia. I love you. But it was like this, I don't know, this like internal crisis at that moment coming to play of like, I don't want anyone to see me. I'm bleeding everywhere. They kept taking all of the stuff that they were sopping up my blood with and weighing it, so that they can tell how much blood you lost and what they need to do in response. It was just like this spinning craziness. I think that all of that, and you guys, I had, and this is for another day, and I shared a little bit about it in a previous podcast. My recovery was rough. Emery broke my tailbone. Being sewn up was really painful, and the recovery from that process was just so much pain. And then Emery was tongue-tied and lip-tied, but they didn't catch it at the hospital, and nursing was painful. He actually didn't get any food until he was 4 days old. And all of that was just like your milk coming in, the pain of all of that. It was just out of this world. And so I think one of the reasons why I wanted to share this story with you guys is because I think we have to talk about the reality of what it can be for everybody so that we can validate and hear everybody where they're at. You see people give birth and then get up and walk around and be like ready to live life and want to be around other people. And I wanted none of that. Like, I wanted my family to meet my son and my friends to meet my son. But then like after day 2, when we went home, I wanted none of that. I wanted peace and quiet. I wanted to be alone. I was in incredible amounts of pain, and that's normal. And I want to validate that for people. It's not all sunshine and butterflies or rainbows and butterflies. I don't know what the saying is, but it's okay. And I want you to be seen and be heard around that. And I hope that sharing this journey and story validates for you guys that there is also humor in looking back on all of this. beauty in recognizing that we are human beings, right? We are inhabiting a human body to live this human experience. It's okay that it's messy. And it's okay that it feels weird and we have moments of denial or moments of complete and utter freak out. All of that is okay because we are humans and that matters. And I'm so excited to be in a position to kind of share all of this from a place of like hindsight. Things that I loved about it, this whole journey, was the power that I got to pick and choose what I wanted in my healing journey, in my journey of birthing my son. And that was unorthodox in many ways, right? That was no IV. That was hypnobirthing. That was doulas and midwives and bargaining with doctors on sewing me up. And that is okay too. We don't always have to go with the status quo or weigh our sense of how we feel based on what we think others are expecting of us or what we should do. We have the ability to choose that. And Michael, thank you for joining us today and sharing your perspective. I think it's valuable to have a father's perspective or both parents' perspectives of what this journey is like, especially with things that are completely out of your control, but your heart is a million times invested in.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me on. I guess, like you said, I hope that this gave some awareness to the birth experience. You know, it's not always rainbows and butterflies, as you mentioned. And I think there's this idealized vision of what the experience would look like. I think, you know, sure, there's going to be a shared experience of people going through birth. You know, it's very shared in that sense, but each one's going to be unique. It's not going to be a walk in the park for everybody. It's not going to be hard for everybody. But I think the point is, at least as the husband or the partner, is trying to find how you can support your person, making sure that you're giving them the support they need and trying to your best. If you don't, maybe you don't believe initially in hypnobirthing, you don't believe in the modalities that they want to pursue, it's still trying to kind of put that in the back and find a way to invest and support and be there for them. Because I think at the end of the day, really, that's really all you can do. It boils down to being there. You can't feel what they're feeling. You can see it. You can't take away the pain there in those moments, but you can be there to make it easier for them to support them and provide, you know, hopefully, I guess, that support. And, you know, that's what I hope people can take away. It's not, like I said, it's not easy. It's not simple. It's not straightforward a lot of times. And that's okay. I think going into it, knowing that if I know that in retrospect, I think it would be a lot less denial for me. You know, a lot of it's just the unknown that you're going to experience and being afraid. And that's okay. Also, you shouldn't feel guilty. You shouldn't feel, you know, bad about that. It's normal to feel that.
And it's okay to feel some guilt. Like when we got pregnant with Emery, I had already rationed in my brain that we were going to be adopting and we were going to be providing a life and a love and a family for a child who needed it. And I had guilt in that process of, who am I to bring another child into this world when there are so many children that need safe, loving homes? And I still battle with that today. I know I made mention, like, we're not having another child biologically, right? We're not going to be birthing another child, but my heart still dreams and yearns to be a mama and a family and pour love on and support and all that I am into other children who need a safe place and safe family and need to belong somewhere. And so I think as our days go on and our lives move and shift differently than we thought, know that there's a bigger plan and all of that. And your plan can shift. That's okay. And same with like birth plans. Birth plans can shift, right? I had no intention to get poked and sewn up, but lo and behold, your plans shift, and that's okay too. So the next time things don't go as planned, just take a deep breath and know that when you look back on all of this, it will all make sense one day. And it's okay that your plans change. It's okay to reassess and make a different plan. And it's also okay to look back on it and think, I would have done that differently if I could. But don't let yourself like live on that or die on that sword of beating yourself up. Move forward, take a deep breath and move forward, and know that there's more plans in store for you that you can control bits of, but the universe or your almighty spirit, whoever you believe in this world, also gets to control a piece of that. And so I think that's my takeaway for everybody tonight is know that big stuff happens, and when it happens, it's going to be okay. Trust yourself, trust your soul, take a deep breath, and move forward. Thank you so much for tuning in today. I hope you are feeling inspired and empowered in your own healing journey. I know that many of you listening might be reflecting on your own stories that you may feel called to share. If so, please reach out to me at denat@empowertoheal.com. That's DENAT@empower2heal.com. Or drop me a message through my Instagram handle at empower2heal. I would love to connect with you and learn about your journeys so that we can hopefully continue to spread these powerful life lessons on empowering ourselves to heal. My contacts will also be linked in the show notes below so that you can easily find me. We are so eager to start a movement in showcasing the many ways we can heal. And you can be part of this movement too by capturing images and tagging them #empower2heal on Instagram. We look forward to seeing all the ways that you are empowered to heal. I love you, beautiful souls, and thank you so much. Please be sure to subscribe, like, and review.